Now, how are you going to compete in a post-IP, post-regulatory, post-proprietary, closed-source technology world? There's only one way, and this is what I love. Meaning is going to come back. We are going to see an age of meaning, an age of values, an age of ethics. And if you build a company that actually doesn't talk values, but operationalizes them on an infrastructure basis and creates an ecosystem of trust with your customers, that's a moat. And I think that's the modern strategic playbook that they will be teaching at Harvard.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Beneficial General Intelligence series. Today, we are going to tackle the following question. What about an AI that rather than doing the job for you, it stimulates you to do the job better? Instead of handing you the fish, it helps you to learn how to fish and maybe get more fish. An AI which fosters your innate aptitudes, inspiring you to ask better questions. A provocateur, enticing you to think more for yourself, to develop your own critical thinking. This is what drove my guest, Stephen Klein, to build Curiouser.AI, a pioneering platform designed to evaluate human reflection through what he calls reflective AI, an approach that challenges the dominant paradigm of AI as efficiency and instead opens space for AI as a thinking partner and as a tool for expanding human consciousness. With a background that spans political science, AI ethics, marketing strategy, and innovation leadership, Stephen brings a deeply interdisciplinary lens to the future of technology. He taught ethics at UC Berkeley for many years, and it worked with partners like IDEO, BCG, and so on. But more recently, what's most important for us is that 2 years ago, he founded Curiouser. And as its CEO, he is now on a mission to ensure that AI doesn't just think for us, but with us. Stephen, Professor, welcome to our Beneficial AGI speaker series.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really honored, Dr. M. I really love what you do and what you stand for, your values, and it's awesome. So thank you.
And Dito, absolutely the same back to you. I'd like to start, Stephen, by exploring the philosophy behind Curiouser. The name evokes a sense of wonder and curiosity, and actually, the interaction with the user is done through an agent called Alice, and it's inspired, as far as I know, by Alice in Wonderland. So, please, can you let us know what inspired you to develop Curiouser? How does it reflect the company's mission?
Yeah, I guess it all started when my boy-girl twins were young. They're now 25 years old, but when they were young, I would read them the story Alice in Wonderland, and it would captivate their imaginations. And I realized that it was an extraordinarily powerful philosophical tale. That is essentially the story of a human being traveling through this fantastic and often frightening world, being confronted with lots of questions, many of which have no answers. But that our journey through life, through our careers, is really about the journey. And if we don't have answers to the questions, at least knowing the right questions and pursuing those answers. That was a key part of it. The other issue was that Lewis Carroll said something that I've always found quite profound, which is that imagination is the only weapon in the war against reality. And I think that there are people like you and I who have one view of reality that's quite pro-human that we are going to realize. And I always thought imagination was at the core of that human imagination is that precious and rare asset that drives all of innovation. And so that was really the second reason. And then the third reason is that I believe that curiosity is also the core asset that the brightest people bring to whatever it is they do, because I think only thing worse than the wrong answer is the right answer to the wrong question. And I think there's an awful lot of people optimizing things that probably ought not exist because they didn't start at the right place. And so it was a combination of those sorts of factors that we decided to basically call our company Curiouser and call Alice. Alice. The other thing is that I think everyone knows that girl AIs are smarter than boy AIs. I think we all know that.
I
and she's
cannot
and she's and
disagree.
she and she's powered by 5 large language models, which makes her a lot more powerful than her friends GPT and Claude.
Amazing, amazing. Of course, I don't want to jump straight into the guts of the matter, but it's very interesting. And of course, immediately the question is because the podcast, our audience is mainly AI people. So, I mean, and I don't need the mathematics, but how do you model curiosity in an AI? How do you
Mm-hmm.
actually do that?
Well, the architecture is essentially you've got the internet as sort of the foundation, and then we've got 5 large language models that we use, which are not our own models. Obviously, a company like ours would never be able to afford building its own foundational model. And I would argue the world does not need any more foundational models, and that's another discussion we can have. So, Alice is powered by OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, and Gemini. And soon we're going to migrate to Llama and potentially DeepSeek on a local server so that we can move toward open source and lower our variable costs so we can lower our price. But so you've got the internet, and then you've got the 5 LLMs, and then we've built this layer of technology that blends the LLMs into one foundational model, which helps us mitigate risk and error. Quite frankly, it's also the model Perplexity uses, but the other companies can't do that because they're married to their own model. We're agnostic. So we blend. So there's a layer of software there. And then on top of that, we have a layer of software we call reflective AI that we've built. And the reflective AI layer is basically trained and educated the opposite way everyone else in the industry is looking at it. So we have not trained Alice to perform tasks. So she doesn't understand that she's supposed to be prompt and do something for you. Because when a human shows up, you don't prompt them right away. You talk to them, you get to know them, and you ask questions. So she's been trained on some fundamental sorts of epistemological kinds of design. For example, Socratic methods. We've studied Socratic methods, and we were able to incorporate Socratic methods into how she thinks. Okay. We've incorporated a design methodology called the 5 Whys, which was invented by Toyota in the 1930s. It revolutionized manufacturing. And we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to repurpose that very simple and elegant algorithm to help people think more deeply and find first principles and find root causes? So we've combined that, And she has been trained and educated to basically ask questions. And then through a technology called meta agentic steering, she can listen to the voices, she can listen to your responses, and she can then assess her next question based on your question. So it's actually a conversation, it's not a survey, unlike GPT and the rest. So it flows. She actually has sort of the ability to observe the conversation and steer it in the direction she feels it ought to go toward. So two things happen that I think are extremely important and maybe obvious, but sometimes obvious is good, quite frankly. I'll take obvious any day of the week. One of the obvious things that I think works is that through this process, she gets to know you. No other generative AI that I'm aware of on the market actually comes at the engagement hat in hand, ready to basically get to know you, understand you, learn what matters to you, what's important, what's keeping you up at night, what are the issues you'd really like to tackle. And so she actually takes that time to ask you those questions. And you're, in a sense, programming her. You're customizing her and you're not prompting her. So she doesn't actually require prompt engineering. I think turning humanity into prompt engineers is, I resent it personally. So that's one of the things. So she's learning about you. But here's where I think it gets even more interesting is she's helping you learn about yourself. Because by challenging you and by slowing you down, she is trying to guide you to see different perspectives and new insights, and maybe even find some first principles. And so you kind of can think about it like Socrates and Plato. I mean, Socrates educated Plato by asking questions. And I always thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we could elevate all of humanity and put Plato in everyone's pocket and elevate us all to a Platonic way of thinking critically and really thinking critically and challenging and questioning. And so that's the fundamental dynamic. The technologies are not, abracadabra, super magical, like, whoa, no one else can do this. There are no proprietary technologies left, I don't believe, in generative AI, to be honest with you. I don't think there are any moats left. I don't think there are any, I think the foundational models have been commoditized to the point where they're all basically running the same electric utility. So I think that the way a company like ours will build value is by actually providing value to people. And when they appreciate that, they'll pay for that value. And we'll continue to provide that value. And it's old school. We want to basically create a community around shared values and trust. And so that's sort of it's partly prompt engineering, fine tuning. There's some RAG technology involved, LangChain, a lot of tools and so forth. But the technology is really not the story. It's what we're doing with it that I think is, on one hand, revolutionary, but on the other hand, it is kind of obvious to me. So I hope that answers your question, Dr. M.
Oh, and it generated so many more questions, Stephen.
Great,
So this is
great.
totally
Start
fascinating.
with the easy ones if you don't mind, because I'm a little
I'm
slow on the
sure
uptake.
they are all easy for you. So, but so yeah, immediately from what you were just saying about how we use the technology, and this is exactly also the topic of our work with the beneficial general intelligence, is there a way to guide humanity, to nudge humanity to awaken its own humanity because it forgot it in this world of uh, dog eats dog and so on and so forth. So what you are saying is how we use the technology, indeed, and this is very interesting. I would like to learn how you use it, but I before this, and also maybe to give you some time to to think about your answer, I just wanted to mention that we have a scientific conference, and what we are doing here at SingularityNet is we are building beneficial general intelligence based on artificial general intelligence. And our founder, Dr. Ben Goertzel, is also the father of artificial general intelligence. Actually, he coined the term in the early 2000s. And LLMs, because you mentioned LLMs, are just a small block in our architecture. Because you are saying kind of the same that yes, everything has been done with LLMs. Now is how we use it and actually how we dress it with other blocks and other artifacts, so we can give it a more interesting use versus do the job for me or write this for me. So what I wanted to say here is that we actually our conference is in August, and it will be in Iceland. We just had the deadline on May 12th. I may try to get our board to make an exception if you want to submit a paper to our conference. But why I'm asking this is because just looking through the submissions, last night I came across a paper which was developing a curious research assistant.
Yeah.
And actually, I have it right here, in front of me, and actually it's pretty mathematical. I have to say, I do not know if you will see it here, but I will send it to you, and if it is accepted, I will we will post it together, in the description of this podcast, and it's called "Embodying Abstract Motivational Principles in Concrete AGI Systems," and this. Curious Research Assistant, which is proposed here, is designed around many goals. So one is the transcendence of a goal, promoting adaptive expansion, based on which this curiosity, satisfying intrinsic curiosity goal, is based. And this actually is it's not easy to explain it right in this context, but the idea is that it would fuel exploration of new information, and that is actually what curiosity is. But I was wondering if you wanted to tell us a bit from your perspective, from this reflective AI perspective. I mean, what I said first of all, does it ring any bell? Would you can
Oh,
you
yeah.
kind of relate to that? And how do you implement, or how do you regard this reflective AI? Because this is a very original and new take on it.
Yeah.
So,
I've got several things I'd like to address, Dr. M. I think that is a very, very important question. The first thing I'd like to say is that I believe in open source, not just open source technology, but open source philosophy, open source strategy. And so everything we're doing, I'm putting out there. And I'm not trying to protect anything at all. And I would like as much competition as possible because we are all moving in the same direction. And so I applaud people that come at it philosophically and ethically, and just love to hear that. And I do think that there's going to be more and more of that, and that's the good news. That's the first thing I would like to say. Good for them. The second thing is, on one hand, you can look at it as adaptive expansion, but you could also look at it as despansion, if there's such a word, because part of my model are children. And there have been studies that have been done. One was by NASA, and they tested 3 to 5 year olds. Polaroid, the founder of Polaroid, Dr. Land, was involved. And what they did is they tested, I don't remember how many, something like 12 to 1,400 5 to 7 year olds for what they called creative genius. And 98% of those children tested positive for creative genius. But the study was longitudinal, and then they tracked them into adulthood. And by the time they were adults, it flipped. And only 2% were. Okay? So one can safely assume, both intuitively and based on at least some data, that most children are geniuses. And that somewhere along the way, we lose that talent, that superpower. And I would argue it doesn't go anywhere. We don't lose it. It gets buried. Because the educational system, at least the way it works in the United States, is the opposite of creative. It's a system based on industrial age doctrine, in which I try to train you to second guess what somebody needs so that you become a task performer. And so in a way, we're all being trained to be chimpanzees. But deep down inside, there is this creativity layer that is just bubbling and thriving with energy. Carl Jung looked at it as sort of this 3-layer, right? So on one hand, we have our sort of our consciousness, and then there's this middleware, and then there's the archetype and the creative world that's pre-language. So I guess what I'm saying is that our generative AI is an attempt at diving down into your mind so that we can actually catalyze and expand the genius that's in you. Because we think people can solve their own problems. Because when you go to a coach or a psychologist, or you have a fantastic mentor in business, or somebody you trust, or somebody, that spiritual friend, a yogi, a guru, they're not giving you the answers. They're asking you the questions. And you're solving the problem for yourself. Fishing. You use the analogy. They're teaching you to fish. So I don't see Alice as an assistant. I see her as a partner. The term is augmentation versus automation. So I think that may be a slightly philosophical difference in how we may be looking at it. I think the answers lie within the human being. I think we're all creative geniuses. I just don't think we have the courage to ask the questions because we don't want to look foolish. And it's courage. Steve Jobs said, think different. Steve Jobs dedicated Apple to the crazy ones, the people who were mad enough, crazy enough to actually think they can change the world, because they're the ones who can. And so I think we all have that ability in us. And that's sort of part of this inspiration, if you will. And I think we can scale brilliance, we can scale impact. I'm going to add one more point to this, that Yale did a study in which they tried to associate, and it was, I believe, published in the Harvard Business Review years ago. And the study was whether or not there's a direct correlation between IQ and genius. Now, most of us, when we think about genius, this is interesting, we think about, that person, very exceptionally brilliant person. They're like a zillion on the ometer of IQ, and humans are closer to monkeys. So we have this myth in society that's pervasive, that genius is a lightning in the bottle phenom that few people have. And the people that have it are partly due to their IQ that they were born with. Okay. It turned out that wasn't the case. They didn't find as much correlation between IQ and genius. And the analogy they used, it was like height. So if you're born tall, you're going to be a good basketball player, at least. I'll use a United States analogy. You're going to be, if you're born tall, you probably have an advantage on the basketball court. But being born tall doesn't make you a basketball player. So I would argue, and this was something I learned at Harvard as well when I studied and taught there, I would argue that the ability to be brilliant and to be a genius is based more on your ability to think critically and understand the craft of thinking and understand the craft of curiosity, and that we all have that innate ability. So I'm not giving anybody the gift of genius or brilliance or whatever you want to call it. I'm giving everyone what I hope anyway is the opportunity to define their own limits and their own potential. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because then you can do whatever it is you're doing better than you're doing it. And now you're not outsourcing your thinking. You're actually augmenting your thinking and becoming better and improving, becoming more creative, becoming a better critical thinker, maybe even pushing the boundaries of your imagination. That's the philosophy here. And that's, to some extent, why we're doing what we're doing.
And you are achieving this through conversations
Purely human-like conversations. In other
with
words,
Alice. Yeah, so
yeah,
Alice
I
is
kind of,
okay.
one of the things I characterize her as, and essentially is a strategic coach.
Mm-hmm.
You could look at her as a strategic coach. Now, eventually, she could become a lot more sophisticated, because she's still a beta. She's still my baby. Um, and she's still being educated, and she's still learning, and she's got her values and she's got her ethics, but there's no end to her ability to understand and learn curiosity and human nature, and come at it from a ethics and value perspective. But yes, it is essentially nothing more than a conversation you have with this generative AI. And rather than being trained to perform tasks, she has been educated to help you think more creatively and more deeply. Ideation, brainstorming. And that's really the key difference.
Amazing. I don't know how you educate her. I assume that's your secret sauce, but I would die to find
No, no,
out.
no. It's really not much of a secret sauce. It's mostly prompting and RAG, and it's taking great thinkers like Socrates and Steve Jobs and basically incorporating their methodologies, detecting
Wow.
patterns, and basically turning her into like almost a master philosophical interviewer. I mean, she's curious.
She got great teachers though.
Well, that's the
Socrates and
beauty.
Steve
That's the
Jobs.
beauty.
Yes.
I would love to be able to have a conversation with Socrates anytime I want.
Yes.
You know, and so yeah, that's what we're doing.
It's
And there are no
amazing.
secrets. I don't keep any of the secret. I really don't.
We are very aligned, as I was mentioning, because our purpose is to develop wise AI. And one way we were thinking how to do this was to tap into all these ancient texts of wisdom, Buddhism and Lao Tzu and so on and so forth, and educate the AI on them. But we're thinking very much alike because one of our startups is called Mind Children, and our CEO is actually even developing small, like toddler robots, and interacting with them like really in real life. Yes, and then they can move and start to grasp, and just raising them like babies, including with education. Yeah, like you are mentioning. So I think there are many avenues for collaboration there, which we can pursue with time. And the purpose, of course, is to have the AI to enable the human flourishing. And with regard to your approach, we also like have this open-ended intelligence approach, because the problem is indeed everyone's genius gets lost in the, I would call it, the rules of society. And if we have courage to step out of the matrix, I think that is the courage which you are talking about. And the thing is, do we have courage to step out of the matrix or not? And scaling brilliance is definitely also our goal, but the how is still, for me, I mean, why doesn't everyone develop Curiouser? On the other side, I wanted to ask you if, most people, of course, in this world, in a market of focused on speed and automation, I assume you have faced challenges, and maybe you are ready for some challenges in promoting an AI that encourages reflection.
Yeah.
What
Um,
do you have to say on that?
yeah. When I started the company uh, a little over 2 years ago and spoke with, for example, investors, many of whom were people I knew because I've got the Harvard MBA, so there's like a network of they didn't get it at all, and they thought I was crazy.
Because they are in the matrix and you speak from outside. So, of
Yeah, I mean,
course.
basically, their strategic rationale, if they put our MBA hats on,
Yeah.
is that automation is where the ROI is. Because if you can go into a company, which is where the money is, and you can establish the fact that you can create efficiencies and you can deconstruct the company into a factory, which is what is happening now, 99% of the enterprise. And so you take the process factory assembly line, all of the tasks, you look at where you can automate, you try to create efficiencies, which boosts your speed, which boosts your margin, which improves your profitability, which increases your share price, which the CFO can actually throw up on the income statement right away and talk to Wall Street about at the next quarterly analyst meeting. You're making money. Okay? So when I come at the industry and say, well, yeah, that's all fine and good, but there's also supposedly some thinking going on there, some creativity going on there, some growth, value creation. And they said, well, no, there's no business in that. So that was sort of the beginnings of the challenge. I was able to find a group of really brilliant, supportive friends, and I raised some capital. I raised about $500,000 to get started and used that money to build what would be called the MVP. Uh, but then something very interesting happened about 3 months ago. And I believe that this is extraordinarily good news for humanity. And I am an optimist. I started basically, without any budget, organically on social media, just talking about the kinds of things you and I are talking about. And I didn't play to the algorithms. I didn't try to ingratiate myself. I didn't try to influence. I just tried to basically put it out there as openly and honestly as I could. And I challenged the industry. I challenged the industry. And because I understand business and finance, I could look at things pretty deeply strategically and analytically. I can do the Wall Street analyst thing. And something really magical happened. I started with nobody who knew who I was, and I started gaining followers and gaining support and gaining momentum. And about 3 months later, I have almost 40,000 followers. So 40,000 people in 3 months have responded to the conversation we're having, many of whom are serious business people, CEOs, management consultants, engineers, technologists, all of which is on LinkedIn, which is the most professional network, I believe, anyway, that I'm aware of. At the same time that was happening, I decided to open up a wait list just to see if there was any actual demand. And we started adding 500 to 1,000 people a week. So clearly, humanity got it. The industry didn't. That was a good thing. That was a good thing for me. And then we basically decided to open up the platform and go live very conservatively and deliberately. Because keep in mind, we are bootstrapped. We did not want to raise money past the safe friends and family, because I don't want to be deflected into another direction. I want to stay true to our values. And right now I know I can do that because I'm in charge. And when we converted from the wait list to the trial period, we converted at almost 40%. That is unbelievable, because the industry benchmark for SaaS tech and Gen AI is probably 2%, 3%, 4% from free to $20. But we converted from waitlist to a $5 paid 2-week trial, because I had to charge, because I incur the variable costs on the tokens to the foundational models. There's a whole underlying cost structure. So that was in incredible demand. And then when we took the 2-week trial and people's trial was up, we converted people to a $25 per month paid subscriber at about 30%. So the answer to your question is major industry pushback, major support from humanity. Yay. So I think I may be the only one that you have ever talked to, in all due respect and in all due humility, that can actually prove through data and business that the message that you are promoting and the message you are sharing is actually a viable, profitable message, and that values and ethics can actually build a commercial enterprise, okay? So that I don't have to basically go back to the academic world and discuss ethics with a bunch of professor PhDs who aren't doing anything while Machiavelli runs the world. I don't want Machiavelli to run the world. I'm sorry. I don't, with all due respect, I can operationalize ethics. I can operationalize values, and I can make money doing it. Now that's the key for me. That's the key for me, because that's how you gain impact. Impact. And so that's sort of the strategic path we're on. And I can take it one more step, which is that I am going to basically move the business into the enterprise category. I am going to provide platform solutions for businesses so they can stop laying everybody off. They can start leveling people up. And I can prove to them that by doing that, not only will they increase their efficiencies, but they're actually going to grow their top line. They're going to grow their revenue. They're going to provide better service, better product, higher margin to their customers. And the way they're going to do that is by actually catalyzing innovation and imagination and elevating the game. And then the barrier to entry, the strategic moat based on Porter's 5 forces, it will be the shared values and the trust they've engendered with the employees and the customer base. So you'll create an ecosystem based on shared values and trust, which is an impenetrable moat versus patents and IP and all that kind of closed-minded, closed-source thinking, which is traditional MBA. And so that's kind of why I'm optimistic. Because I'm a numbers guy and I've got the numbers. And I'm a philosopher. I'm a data-driven philosopher. I don't want to be somebody who talks about ethics because I'm a good guy or because I believe in humanity I do want to be all those things, but I want to take on the bad guys. And in order to take on the bad guys, you need some juice. You need a business and a model. You need to compete. You need to win. And so I'm going to operationalize ethics. And I'm going to build a category called strategic imagination. Reflective AI, strategic imagination, a platform that operationalizes ethics using shared values as a barrier to entry on a strategic basis. And that's going to be the model. And that's where this goes. And then if I make enough money, I can give this away to people that can't afford it. So I can give it away to entrepreneurs. I can give it away to startups. Because if I can help entrepreneurs and startups be successful, we can start generating jobs, because 62.7% of all new job creation in the United States is startups. And they're failing right now. So that's sort of the business vision and strategy laid out.
Fascinating, and actually so aligned also with our mission. There are so many things which I can catch from what you said, but I think the most striking one, which brought tears in my eyes when you mentioned it, was that you can actually, and you have proven, which is like, wow, it's amazing, yes, that you can get commercial value and
You want to hear
fund
that?
that.
Let me give you 2 data points. This is data. Without spending $1 in marketing, and I'm competing in a $100 billion industry, 100 with a B, billion dollars. Okay? That's a lot of noise. 2 data points. I add roughly 500 people to my wait list every week organically. And I add 500 to 1,000 followers on LinkedIn a day. A day. And I get 100 to 200 direct messages a day on LinkedIn alone. 95% of those people are kindred spirits who want to figure out how they can help. who are thanking me for having the courage to take on the industry, because quite frankly, the industry has come at me.
Of course.
I'm
I'm
becoming,
sure.
I mean,
That's why I asked
a lot
you.
of very influential, important people are accusing me of demonizing them, when all I'm doing is saying to them, I'm merely asking questions. I haven't demonized you. I am not accusing you of anything. I'm merely asking you questions, and I'm asking you to explain the data that I have and help me understand why the data you have doesn't align with the data I have, because the data they have is paid for by the industry secretly. Shh. It was the sugar playbook in the 50s, and it was the tobacco playbook in the 90s. I know. I study and teach marketing. It's tobacco, it's pharma, it's sugar. It's not independent, peer-reviewed research. I have access to some of that research. So I know what's going on. And I'm going to put that stuff out there. To hell with them. Even if I don't make a penny, I don't care. I really don't. I really don't. Let's just make some noise. It's rock and roll.
So of course they came after you because you are shedding light on the dirty, dark corners of the matrix. And of course, as you know, I am one of those hundreds of followers that have joined you on one of those days, along with the other 500 or 1,000. And of course, yes. So it's clear that there is a need and a thirst for values and for ethics, and so just to prove and to shed light on this, that there's commercial value in this thirst for ethics. It's so important because it's not only for your success, but it is for the future of
Yes.
humanity. I
Well,
think
we're
that
creating,
is more important. Yes, the future
Dr.
of
M, we
humanity at
are,
stake.
yeah, I mean, if you really want to play this out to further, we are basically doing our best to use technology to create a better world for our children. Okay? That's really the point here. That's really the point here. And that means creating opportunities for them so that they can fulfill their potential. And that's what that's what this is essentially all about.
And this strategic thinking and automation, of course, is pervading also our education systems, because the education system is what is producing those people from the industry who think in that way and who you are challenging. And I think it's also, therefore, it's so important to have your system used in education. So I wonder, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think it will be adopted, or will you create your own university, or how are you gonna raise our kids out of
Well,
this
first of all,
education system, which is actually destroying their genius, right?
let me go to where I think the real, like, where the let me follow the money. Right now, the traditional Michael Porter competitive five forces strategy that the MBA is carrying into the world, that's running the larger corporate, that all the corporations are being run by MBAs from Harvard, Wharton, Stanford. I'm sure there's European schools. They all think the same way. I know how they think. I would argue, and I'm going to start here, that the playbook they're using to compete is going to basically, it's not going to work soon, because we're living in a post-IP, post-regulatory world. What do I mean? Post-IP. 90% of all the IP on the internet has been stolen by 5 companies. Okay? Fact. 5 companies, 90%. Yeah, they're in court, but it's
But the
done.
fact is done, yes.
It's
So
done, and now we're all
damage is
accomplices.
done. Yes.
Regulation, like, oh, let's hope that the cavalry shows up and starts regulating. That's not going to happen. I mean, look at the United States um, Trump administration. I mean, we're not going to cooperate with anybody. China. So let's assume there's going to be no real regulation or remedy. So now you're in a post IP world and you're in a post regulatory world. And now assume that open source technology is going to win the day, which it always does. Llama, Mistral, DeepSeek, all the technology goes away in terms of competitive. So now, how are you going to compete in a post IP, post regulatory, post proprietary, closed source technology world? There's only one way, and this is what I love. Meaning is going to come back. We are going to see an age of meaning, an age of values, an age of ethics. And if you build a company that actually doesn't talk values, but operationalizes them on an infrastructure basis and creates an ecosystem of trust with your customers, that's a moat. And I think that's the modern strategic playbook that they will be teaching at Harvard, because it's going to work. It's not going to be a theory. So that's the capitalist economic enterprise side. As far as the education system, generative AI, the parents at least have got to step in, and they've got to stop the companies from doing what they're doing. And the influencers on LinkedIn, I'm starting to call them out, because right now the major providers are giving this stuff away to campuses on free during finals week. And they're doing what the cigarette guys did, right? They're basically, hey, have some free cigarettes. Have some free cigarettes. Hey. It's good for you. It's good for you, you know? Sexy. So that's got to stop. Google, I'll call them out on this, literally just announced that they're going to push Gemini on 13-year-olds aggressively. Now, yeah, but here's the thing. The parents are going to have to opt out. It will be automatically opt-in. That's got to stop. The influencers on LinkedIn who are constantly out there with PhDs telling all of the world and the parents that this is the best thing that ever happened to education, and this is training, and this is that, and this is that. They're being paid to do that. They got to be stopped, because there's evidence that right now there's rampant cheating, 50%. Cognitive decline is a real thing. Cognitive decline is a real thing. Okay? So the first thing I think is tactically, got to stop that. Got to stop the damage. Then intelligent people who are ethically minded and understand technology and understand generative AI have got to study it, because no one knows. And when somebody says, well, it's okay, you know, the parents can supervise it. I love that one. How the hell are parents going to supervise anything when they don't understand it themselves? Talk about the blind leading the blind. I wouldn't know how to supervise generative AI if my kids were in high school, other than don't use it. The other thing that's interesting is the children of all the billionaire tech giants, like, they don't let their children anywhere near social media, phones, or anywhere near generative AI. Nowhere near it. So they're selling something they're not going to give their kids. So the only answer I have to the first question, I mean, in terms of business, I think I have it figured out. In terms of education, I don't have the answer, but I know that the damage has to be stopped on a pragmatic basis, and then it needs to be figured out.
Yeah.
Or we're
Easier
just
said
being
than
reckless.
done. And I think, like I was thinking homeschooling, but then, exactly.
That
Then we
doesn't
run
really
into
solve
these
the
other
problem. And then
things.
you've got the
No.
social challenges, Dr. M. I mean,
Yeah.
the biggest part of education is the social implications, which is why COVID and why social media has done so much damage. So keep in mind, there's a perfect storm. There's COVID, social media, and generative AI, all impacting our young people. This is bad. This is not good. And the
But you know,
problem needs to be
just a second. Let
recognized.
me ask you something, Stephen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So let's say if people, okay, so I got your point. But let's say nobody has anything else except your system, your Curiouser AI. Would then it be safe to be used in schools and
I
at
don't know.
home?
I
Ah,
don't know the answer. Now,
interesting.
I know that there are certain, I'm old enough to remember when there was videos.
Then just a second. Then what are you
Yeah,
building? I mean,
I'm building a tool and a platform and a strategic coach for the business world to
okay,
augment and create jobs for the economy and to
I
to
see.
to,
So
to
it's not for
basically.
education. It is for,
No,
as
no,
far as
no.
I have seen. Just a
No.
second,
I
Stephen. Give
Yeah.
me a chance, please, to lead a bit of the conversation
Sorry.
from here on. Just a little bit because you are approaching the end, and I'd like to cover some things. And I went on your platform, of course, and I have seen that what's there is like you have two areas for consultants and for entrepreneurs. And I'd like to ask you, so how can it be useful for consultants? How can it be useful for entrepreneurs? Because I agree that that's exactly what I have seen on your website. It's more focused on industry, but it didn't seem to be it's focused on big industry from what I have seen. And correct me if I'm wrong. And so I'd like to know how is it useful in those kind of use cases.
Great question, and thank you. In terms of entrepreneurs and startups, it's a single use case product that basically enables them to assess their strengths and their weaknesses so that they have a better chance of succeeding. Because right now, entrepreneurs fail 90% of the time in the United
Totally.
States. Now, for every 1% we can improve the 10% success rate, we create 200,000 jobs. Okay, so the goal with the entrepreneurial startup world is just to develop a founder, mentor, partner. Think about it as Steve Jobs becomes
Wow.
a CMO of
Yes.
every entrepreneur. I want to basically make Steve Jobs a CMO of every startup.
Amazing.
It's not that
Wow.
hard to do. In fact, we can
I
do it right now.
agree, but yeah, that's a great idea. You know, I mean, it's yeah.
So
We
that's the
actually,
answer. Yeah.
Stephen, let me tell you one thing. We
Yes, ma'am.
actually have a company called Twin Protocol, which I think it would be easy for them to do a twin of Steve Jobs. But the question is, how do you put him to use, and how do you exactly make him into that CMO, which would be ideal for the entrepreneurs, right?
The product part is easy.
Hmm.
The technology and product part is easy. It just takes some capital and some NLP developers, some rag tech. There's
So
nothing
where is the
magical about that.
difficulty? Where is the difficulty?
Distribution, because to take a product that is essentially being marketed to, let's say in the United States, 60 million people,
Mm,
because that's roughly the market, it takes an extraordinary amount of money to generate the awareness to
mm.
create the channel. So what you have is a capital distribution challenge, which the venture capitalists don't want to fund because they'd rather fund automation into the enterprise and make more money.
Yeah, let me tell you a secret. We have a venture studio, and it's exactly for companies like yours. So we can of course discuss this
There's
as well.
nothing in the way of us doing all of this. I would, in fact, argue that we could be weeks to a month away. We have
Yeah,
a product right now that will work and that will help, but we can make it better. That's the
amazing.
entrepreneurial side.
Yes, and let tell me also the consultant side.
The
How do you
consultant
how?
side, we haven't really announced yet. So I
Oh,
haven't.
I have seen it on the
So
website.
I know, I
That's
know, I
why.
know. I mean, some of my team is getting a bit ahead of me, which is they're excited, and that's fine. The
Okay.
consulting is going to basically be hybrid consulting that's going to be part platform and part advisory. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our platform and offer it to a company as an agnostic, open source, multi large language model platform that they can use to build infrastructure around ethics and values.
Wow, I
And
want
then we're
it.
going to basically advise them on how to integrate the organization, how to bring HR in and legal in and marketing in, so that they can actually incorporate the humanity piece of their industry. And that will be part of the platform development. And then Alice will be a strategic coach layer that individuals in the organization can use to elevate their thinking,
Yes.
and then the organization elevates its thinking in aggregate. So it's a multi-tiered, holistic platform advisory service application layer designed for business. And that's that's what
Yes.
we're going to. That's what, in fact, that's what we're building. We're going to announce it in about 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Amazing. Amazing. So, so you are building this, what I would call like the meaning movement, right? For the future of humanity, for the flourishing of humanity, which is amazing. And to remind us also that there's value in ethics and to value ethics. I mean, this is something so fundamental which we lost in the race for profitability, and to show that actually, yeah, ethics can be profitable,
I'm
guys.
commercial.
And
One of the messages I'm going to get out there is that we can commercialize ethics.
yes,
We're
that's
going to
that's
we're going to
that's for
monetize
me the
values.
biggest
We're going to monetize
contribution.
values. Yeah, no, we're going to
Yes.
commercialize it so that it becomes a smart thing for businesses to invest in. Okay, so it's not a charity. I don't want your foundational money. I don't. I'm a Harvard MBA. I'm a capitalist. But we can commercialize ethics, operationalize values, build trust, and we can create an age of meaning that actually benefits humanity and sustains itself. This is the integration of business and values and ethics and trust. And there's no reason we can't do that. There's no technology in our way, Dr. M. There is no technology barrier here. All this right now is capital. It's getting the people who have the ability to believe in this and to speed it up. But there's nothing actually right now stopping this from taking off in terms of technology constraint, product constraint, vision constraint, customer demand constraint, strategic constraint. It's all laid right out there on a product roadmap. I can see it clear as day.
So, just in closing, I wanted to say, so what you are doing here from our perspective, because we are, you know, we will be deploying the singularity, the AGI, which is smarter than everyone else, and then Einstein in a few years, or maybe even sooner than a few years. And humanity, the problem is that humanity is not ready for that. And if the
No,
singularity plays by the
no.
exactly in the matrix, we are all done.
The narrow AI or the AGI, the technology isn't the unethical problem.
Uh,
The
the,
problem
the thing
is the
is, you are
people.
preparing exactly. It's the humanity which is
It's
not humane.
behavioral. It's
Yeah.
it's it's classic strategic MBA behavioral issue. It's corporate behavioral issue. It's short term behavioral issue. It's that's what has to be addressed in a way that business people will understand it.
And that's why your work is so important, because it prepares us, it awakens us, yes, to
I hope. I hope
uh,
so. And
no,
people like you, I mean,
you
there's
must
a
not
lot of us
hope.
out there, Dr. M. There's a lot of really decent, good, serious people out there, and it's wonderful.
And all
It's
our
wonderful.
community is with you, and I'm so happy that you are addressing them now, and they will definitely become your followers. And we are committed to support you to succeed,
Wow.
because this is our mission as
I've
well.
had to
And
go right now. I've had to go right now. It's been us on our own fighting
Mhm.
the world up until 3 or 4 months ago. Literally, it's we are starving artists
Yeah,
building something we
yes,
believe in because we're not going to stop.
yes.
We're not going to
It
stop.
it seems to me that you will succeed, and we are here to support you. And
Thank you.
really, I'm so happy,
I'm
because we were
honored.
looking exactly for someone with your thinking and who can really see and bring value to those forgotten, like ethic and goodness and truth, uh, which have been lost in the matrix. So thank you so much, and we look forward to your keynote at the conference
Dr.
in
M,
October in Istanbul. And but before that, of course,
I'm
we
so
will be in
grateful.
touch. I just wanted to ask if
I'm
you have
grateful for you.
any last thoughts for our audience, or before
The
we
only thing
close.
I would say is that it's the challenge is finding the courage we all need to do what we really know is right. I think the vast majority of us know what's right, and we're innately ethical. And so I think that we all need to basically find that courage and know that if we follow the path with heart, good things will happen, despite the fact that rationally it may seem scary.
Yeah,
It's
because
courage is the issue, not
it's the courage to step out from the definition of success in
yes.
which we were raised in this system. Yes, that's practically what it is.
And then
And you are
you'll achieve
showing
more success. You'll achieve more
exactly.
success.
That's what your work is doing. It's showing, shedding light on that truth, which people are not aware of. And that's so important. Really. Thank you
Well,
so much for your work. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'm very excited to see how Alice grows up and how humanity grows up with her. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you to you and your audience. I'm grateful. Bye bye.